Okay, good evening everyone, and thank you for joining us for tonight's presentation with the PEEC Nature Youth Group. Before we get started, I want to make sure everyone's aware that the presentation is being recorded. I am Beth Courtwright. I'm the Operations Manager at the Pajarito Environmental Education Center, or PEEC, here in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's talk. PEEC is a nonprofit organization that operates the Los Alamos Nature Center, and you can visit our website, peeknature.org, to learn more about visiting the Nature Center and our other events we have going on. I want to quickly acknowledge our wonderful members and our donors and our partners for their generous support. For more details about other PEEC programs, you can go by visit our website or stop by the Nature Center anytime. All right, just a few logistics before we get started. Our presenters will be taking questions via Zoom chat and from our in-person audience at the end of the presentation. For those of you watching from home, you can find the chat feature in the Zoom app menu bar. You can type your questions to the one that says PEEC Moderator in the chat anytime during the talk, and I'll read them during the Q&A at the end. Please remember that not everyone in the room with us can have a microphone, so there may be a delay when we're listening to the questions from the live audience. Don't worry, we'll be back on in a second, and our presenters will repeat the question for everyone to hear. After the talk, you'll receive a short evaluation in your email. Please do take a moment to fill that out. It really helps us to improve our future programs. Thank you again for joining us this evening, and I will turn it over to the PEEC Nature Youth Group now to start the presentation.
Hello everybody, and my name is Suchir Jha, and I am a representative and a group member of the PEEC Nature Youth Group. So I like to see all of us as pieces to a puzzle, all contributing uniquely to create an impactful solution. So before I dive, and my friends will dive into the details, we like to give thanks to a few members. First is the Mountain Lion Foundation, especially Gori Baptiste, who gave us invaluable information about Puma mitigation, which my friends will be talking about later on in the presentation. We also have Mark Payton from the Large Mammal Group. So he gave us photos and data and helped us train our machine learning program, which again will be going on over later in the presentation. We also have Lisa Reeder from the Los Alamos stables, who let us test our machine learning prototype here in Los Alamos. So we'd like to give huge thanks. And lastly, but not least, we have Javier Santos from the labs, who taught us little small high schoolers the powerful tool of machine learning. And I know it's not on there, but we also had help from a few other adults that are in the room, and for our online people, you might know them. We have Mr. Hari over there and Mr. Bach. Oh, okay. And yes, they basically helped us along the whole way, and we like to give a big thanks to all of these people. So who are we? We made this project on the principle of innovation and collaboration. Here, living in Los Alamos, we have access to the labs and PEEC. With these invaluable resources, we decided to protect our ecosystem with the powerful tool of machine learning. So let's dive into the details.
Hi, my name is Celia. So, our goal is to take a proactive approach regarding the conflicts between pumas and human interests. So, Los Alamos, New Mexico is part of the Rocky Mountains, and it's full of a very diverse wildlife population, which includes a lot of large mammals such as pumas, bears, coyotes, and deer. Pumas serve as a really keystone species in our community, as they keep ecosystems healthy not only by controlling herbivore populations and reducing deer vehicle collisions, but they also help improve the biodiversity and soil health of our community. Unfortunately, the mountain lions here in Los Alamos have experienced a lot of habitat loss due to human encroachment and wildfires and drought, which have resulted in increased puma-human conflict. So basically, as we all know, Los Alamos and the regions surrounding it have experienced a lot of wildfires in the last 25 years, and so basically the county cleared out a lot of the brush, which then caused a lot of deer to come more into town seeking vegetation, which the mountain lions then followed them, and it led to an increased mountain lion and human contact. And unfortunately, with this contact, in recent years, 1 to 2 mountain lions were killed per year by game and fish at our local horse stables, where there's easily accessible livestock, which makes for really easy prey for them.
Hi, I'm Phoebe. 2023 conflict at the stables motivated us to take action. Due to wildfire and drought due to climate change led to more shrubs growing in town, which led to an exploding deer population. There are open pens at the community stables with goats, horses, chickens, and donkeys. Goats are particularly problematic for being killed by pumas. Just last October 2024, a puma attacked and killed a goat and was killed by game and fish. This doesn't solve our problem because new subadults quickly move into open territories.
Hey, I'm Tate. And so let's talk about the environment around Los Alamos. So as you probably know, Los Alamos is built on mesas with canyons intertwined. And we also have the Valles Caldera, the Bandelier, and Santa Fe National Forest near us. And those all have healthy puma populations. And because of the exploding deer population in Los Alamos, subadults and some adults have been coming into town, and we have GPS data to prove this. So let's talk about the stables in Los Alamos. Well, they're built right next to Bio Canyon, as you see on the top, and it's been a persistent problem that pumas have been coming in and killing goats. And so these little yellow triangles show where recently there have been pumas attacking and they have killed goats, and then the stable owners or other people go out and kill them. And so it's a big problem that we need to fix.
Hello, my name is Zoe. So, while a lot of our project focuses on specifically puma-human conflict in our own town, this is actually something that is a global issue that needs to be addressed. So in the US, predation is actually very highly localized, so there is an opportunity for targeted mitigation efforts like the one we've developed to work. But not only in the US, but also across the world. In many impoverished communities in places such as Africa, South America, and Mexico, livestock serves as a very important role in the community. It serves as nutrition, it serves as income, it serves as social status. And so when large carnivores, like lions, tigers, and polar bears, which have huge energy requirements and need to go after larger prey, and also have ranges that overlap with human interests, come into play, you see a lot of loss of this livestock across the world. For example, in South Africa, 10 to 30% of wool and mutton industry loss is due to the black-backed jackal, while puma and jaguar predation in Costa Rica has led to significant livestock losses for ranchers. So we can see that while this is an issue that we are focusing on addressing in our own community, the solution can actually be cross-applied to many other places and can actually have far-reaching benefits.
Hello, everyone. My name is Addis Bach, and so what is our proposed solution to the problem? As you know, pumas have been attacking the stables and killing stable animals there, and the current solution to that is that game and fish, which is sort of a pest control, come in and kill the puma. But this solution poses problems because when a puma is killed, since a puma is an apex predator, it rules over a very large territory, and once the puma is killed and removed, there is an imbalance in the ecosystem in that territory, and deer population spikes, which causes more deer vehicle collisions. And finally, later on, a subadult male puma will come in to that territory and take it over and just repeat the problem. So the current solution is not very good and is harmful towards pumas. And we are trying to develop a solution that doesn't harm them and is effective in the long term. And so what is that solution? Well, basically, our solution works that there's a camera and it takes a picture of animals passing by, and those animals are then if it is a puma, it's deterred by a thing. So why don't we just have a camera with a motion sensor that detects anything passing by and plays a deterrent? Well, most of the animals that do pass by aren't going to be pumas, so when deterrent is played, it's going to be sound. Nearby communities are disturbed, and many people don't want to do that and therefore don't implement such a solution. So we thought we could use AI, which was become pretty big in recent years, to classify images as puma or not puma, and then therefore decrease, like disturbance to nearby communities. And basically, we take a picture, classify it, and then if it is a puma, we play deterrence. So that's our solution.
Hi everyone, I'm Ian McLean, and so can AI detect mountain lions in real time? So this image is basically what our goal for this project is going to be. We'll have a motion sensor trail cam that will take picture when it senses motion and send it to those pictures to our Raspberry Pi, which is basically just a small computer with no screen. That Raspberry Pi will run our machine learning classification algorithm to detect if it's a lion or not. And if it is, it'll play our deterrents, like human voices that'll scare away the lion. So if we are able to train the machine learning algorithm to determine if the image the trail cam sent is a lion and initiate the deterrence, we're in business. Like Suchir said earlier, we are just high schoolers, so we did need some help. So the Mountain Lion Foundation gave us information on what type of deterrence would be useful against mountain lions. The Los Alamos National Labs gave us a basic understanding on machine learning, and the Large Mammal Project sent us thousands of images of animals that we use in our classification algorithm.
Hi, my name is Aditya. So my peers here have brought up the term machine learning quite a few times, but what exactly is it and how does it work? So first off, like Ian said, we were given thousands of trail cam images from the Large Mammal Project. So what we do with those images is we have to label them either as lion or no lion. So you take, say, thousands and thousands of images, and you have to give each one a label based off of if there is a puma in the screen or not. So then what you do with those is you split them into either training or validation images. So what training is that say you take 80% of those images and you give it to the algorithm to kind of like look for trends and basically figure out how to detect the lion. So think of it as kind of giving the algorithm homework. And then when it's ran through all those images several times, then you give it the other 20% of images, which it hasn't seen. And those are called the validation images. So it's kind of like testing the algorithm to see if it knows what it's doing. So over here you can see on the green images to my right, in case A, that's one of our validation images. And to me, that's actually not clearly a puma, and I'm sure you agree, but the algorithm nails it. Anything above 50% is puma, and it says it's 100%. Same with case B, and then with cases C and D, which are elk and deer, it knows that they are not pumas. So we ended up with a 91% validation accuracy as our highest, as a best model. So what we decided to do is then set up a camera outside the stables and see if our algorithm would actually work in the field. So you can see those with the blue images, and we were actually quite lucky because pumas are typically very rare animals. You're lucky to have them walk by. But a few weeks after we set up our camera, we did actually have a puma walk by the stables, and with that we were able to test the algorithm. So as you can see, case E, that's a fox. It knows that it's not a lion. And in case F, it nails it as a lion. But then if you look at case G, we have a bit of a problem. To me, that's pretty clearly a lion. I'm sure it is to you as well. But the algorithm says it is only 13% lion, which is not good. And we were very confused by this because it was nailing all the validation images. Why was it not able to get this seemingly pretty easy image? So, doing a bit more digging and research, we came to the conclusion that the reason is that every single time motion is detected for a photo, it takes 3 pictures. So case G is the first image of those 3. So what happens is that it ends up that image is a bit slightly darker than the others. The Puma is not completely in the frame. And since it's darker, that screws up the algorithm. So practically this isn't an issue for us because we have those 3 images. As long as one of them goes off, it'll set off the deterrence, and that's really all we need. But just out of curiosity, you can see photo H is the same as photo G, just slightly brightened, and it nails it. Okay, so now that we have our 91% accuracy algorithm, I'll show you a few of the steps it took to get there. So initially we went to Javier Santos, who is an expert in machine learning at Los Alamos National Labs, and basically he thought it would be a very simple solution. After all, machine learning is what's used for facial recognition, so you could think if it could pick out a face in a crowd, it should be able to know if it's a lion or not. So what he did was he set us up with a simple basic algorithm, and that you can see is what's case 1. And the important thing to look at here is the validation accuracy, and you can see that in case 1 it's extremely low. After all, 50% is a lucky guess since we only have 2 options to give it, and since it's only at around 60%, that's very close to a lucky guess. So it was proving to be a more difficult than expected, and changing a few things like in cases 2 and 3 were not successful. So at this point, things are looking really bleak. We're wondering if the AI just wasn't going to work and we're going to have to give up. Also, I'm using AI and machine learning interchangeably in this, just for further notice. So then, one thing that actually Addis over there had a really good suggestion of doing is trying a pre-trained model. So what a pre-trained model is these big companies like Google have invested lots of money into creating these pre-trained algorithms. And what they are is machine learning algorithms that are already trained on millions and millions of data, just random images, to see if it's like a smarter algorithm. So we decided to use Google's Xception algorithm, which is trained on 25 million images. And first we tried to see, it's already trained on so many images, maybe it'll just work right off the bat. So that you can see with case 4A. And as you can see, it had very poor accuracy. But however, if you just add only 200 of our images, it jumps up from around 50% to 80%. And then adding more and more images, it goes to 91%. So the key is just using a basic algorithm with our data wasn't enough to work. Just using pre-training wasn't enough to work. But if you combine the two, you can get a really good algorithm. Okay, so now that we had a working algorithm, we were curious what some other AI experts might think of it. So we decided to enter it into a competition. So NeurIPS is the premier AI conference in the whole world. Every year, thousands of researchers go to share the most groundbreaking AI research. And just this year, they opened up a high school track. So this was pretty exciting to us. We thought maybe we could try out and see how we did. So we submitted our paper and got interviewed by the chairs of NeurIPS, who are really big deal scientists at Google and Meta, and just decided to see how we would do.
So when we originally entered the high school track, we didn't think we would get very far, but we actually ended up being one of 4 winning projects out of a total of 335 global entries, which was really cool. So when we went there, it was really amazing to see all the other projects, and it was cool to see that ours was very unique with our target being environmental problems, and we ended up winning $1,500 for our project, and we presented in front of lots of experts in AI and such.
I would also like to add that what's most interesting about going to NeurIPS is that that's where all the best AI research is. but we weren't able to really see any projects that were based on wildlife conservation. So by bringing this project to NeurIPS, it was kind of cool that we were kind of this unique project that was kind of combining high tech with AI and in solving environmental issues. So that was kind of what was unique about our project, and we think that's why the judges liked it so much.
Okay, so now that we have told you how it works, we're trying to deploy it right now. Basically, we only have the machine learning or AI model part of it done. Our AI model runs 91% accuracy on the validation data set, but we need to actually deploy it and get all the deterrents working and the camera working and the Raspberry Pi or the computer working and put it out there to actually start making a difference. And you might be wondering, why don't we just put it out there? Well, there's some problems that we run into. Where we're deploying this at the stables, we don't have good network connectivity. We have little or none network connectivity, so we can't have like a cellular camera that transmits the pictures via network to our Pi, so we need to have them very close together or directly linked up. And the other problem we run into is that there's not like some sort of power source there, like a socket we can just plug something into. So we need to use a computer that's very small and power efficient, and that's why we're using the Raspberry Pi, and instead of like a conventional GPU or something. So we have that problem, and we're powering it. We're going to power it with solar cells, but the Raspberry Pi, it can't run very much. It's small, so we need to have our model be small and work on it, and we have to work around that. We also need it to run very fast so that once it's taken the picture and gone through the whole process of classification, the Puma hasn't just run off and already killed livestock. So we need it to run very fast and quickly so that it actually works. And so some other problems we had are equipment-specific problems, such as the camera we're going to be using. So originally we used a critter cam, and we just took pictures there, but we ran into some problems. The critter cam used a subscription, and we only had a certain number of images every month we could take, so that was a problem. And also with things such as cellular cameras, the companies that own them, they don't disclose the information of how the images are transferred off of them, so we can't really control that aspect, but we kind of need to make it run faster and better. So we can't really, and also cellular trail cams are slow. So then we looked further and we found that security cameras are actually very fast and they work well. And we found one that's FTP enabled, which means that when the images are taken off, they go directly to the Pi, and we know how it works. So we can optimize it to run as fast as we want it to. And our camera that we're using is the one shown there on that black one, and it's only $40. And so that's the next thing, is this solution scalable? So you're wondering, maybe why don't we just build a fence around each individual pen to stop the Puma from coming in and killing all the livestock? Well, that's because Pumas are very athletic and they can jump really high, so the fences have to be really high and durable, and that costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time to put in. And many people, such as the stable owners or others, don't want to do that and don't want to spend that money on something like that. So our solution, on the other hand, is extremely cheap and useful, because once we have our whole system up and running, we can place cameras anywhere where the Puma is attacking. So if they change where they attack, we can place a new camera there with a deterrent, so we can adapt to the current situation. And it's also very fast and very cheap. And yeah, as you can see below, here are the prices listed of all the components. It's around $40 for each camera, $150 for the Raspberry Pi, and then $200 for the rest of the components.
Successful deployment could lead to an impactful win for human-wildlife coexistence. We are close to deploying our workflow at the stables. This economic AI-enabled solution implements well and scales well as opposed to building high fences or enclosed pens at the stables. The workflow proposed may have broad utility since carnivore-human conflicts are only increasing due to climate change, habitat loss, etc. At the NERBS conference, another winning team used AI for water harvesting in Tanzania, where African lions are killing livestock. We are planning to see if we can retrain our neural network for lions and to see if they can deploy our Lion Guard at their site in Tanzania.
So I talked a little bit earlier about how there's sort of a global need for this, but there's also a global way in which we can further apply this in many places. For example, just looking locally, many states, including Colorado and New Mexico, are working on predator reintroduction efforts, such as that with the gray wolf, to help rebuild these populations. But some of the most vocal opponents to these programs are the ranchers, who are rightfully worried about the safety of their livestock and their own livelihoods. But introducing programs such as PumaGuard in conjunction with these livestock reintroduction efforts could serve as a compromise, balancing the needs of these ranchers and their livestock along with ecological stability and these reintroduction efforts. But while our project has primarily focused on this sort of predator livestock interaction, that's not the only way it can be used. It can also be deployed for many herbivore animals. For example, both Asian and African elephants often go after crops and are very destructive when they do so and are seen as pests for doing so. And this is often met with lethal retaliation. So implementing a system such as our PumaGuard system could also prevent elephants from going after crops or other animals from going after crops and being killed to protect crops. Another thing we saw when we were actually researching things that might be similar to our system is that a system very similar to ours was actually used to keep, I think it was elephants, off of railroad tracks to prevent dangerous collisions. So this could also be used in many other places just to deter wildlife from places that it's dangerous for them and dangerous for us to be without very expensive or dangerous methods.
So lastly, we just wanted to talk about pet safety and what we can do as a community to keep our pets safe from mountain lions. So mountain lions pose as a really serious threat to especially dogs between the hours of the night, as that's when they're most active hunters. So first of all, dogs should never be left unattended because it increases the risk of a mountain lion going after it. Next, when dogs are let outside, they should be accompanied by lots of light and noise. And following that, owners should also scout out the area completely before letting their dogs out. So if you're letting your dog out, make sure to turn the porch light on and accompany it with a lot of noise and light and scout out the area to make sure it's safe for your dog. Another thing that we wanted to touch on was how outdoor cats are not only really vulnerable to mountain lion attacks, but they're also really bad for the bird population. And so we're here to kind of address that and encourage more indoor cats when possible. And lastly, the most important thing that any of you guys can do is to educate yourself. So we want to make sure that everybody's aware of the problem in Los Alamos regarding mountain lions. So a lot of my peers talked about the Mountain Lion Foundation. They have a really great website with a lot of good information on how we as humans can coexist peacefully with mountain lions. So we encourage you to take a look at that and educate yourself, your families, and our community to improve the relationship between humans and mountain lions. So that's on mountainlion.org. And now we're just kind of opening it up to some questions that anybody might have.
Okay, any questions in the room? Yeah, let's start over here.
Okay, so the question was asking about if there's ways to test the durability of our system and how long it can last. So first, in terms of how long it lasts, the fact that it's solar powered means that it can constantly be out there without having to be recharged. And then additionally, waterproofing cases and just any case to keep it safe will make sure it's quite durable.
I can do
Does that
some
answer?
more other thing. I mean, we're using existing stuff, so. And then the other thing they keep on.
Yeah, so the point just made was that the security camera already is waterproof, and that additionally a lot of the stables, for example, have power already, so the solar is a great option for if there is no network connectivity, but often these stables do have it, so that answers the power. Any other questions? Yeah. You can go ahead, yeah.
I didn't know someone was coming. What about, do they ever get used to the deterrence? Are there things that are more effective long term rather than saying, oh yeah, that's just a bunch of noise?
Yeah, so the question was about if the pumas can get used to the deterrents and what deterrents are more effective. So part of the reason we're actually doing this specific targeted mitigation is to decrease the risk of the pumas acclimating and becoming accustomed to the deterrents. Because if it was something that was just constant, such as like floodlights or just a sound that triggered at every little motion, it's more likely that the pumas would get used to it just because it was playing more like often. And our other plan is, even with the targeted deterrents, we are able to not only stack deterrents, but also possibly change deterrents, so that we don't run the risk of the pumas becoming acclimated and just ignoring the deterrents.
So what are the stacks?
Yeah, so for example, we could have noise and light go off. Something we've also discussed is, and sorry, to repeat the question, it was like, again, what is the stacking? So we can say layer noise and light, and another thing that we've actually heard might be effective is using sprinklers to spray water and scare off the pumas if we could get hooked up to an irrigation system. So if you had a lot of those things happening at once, it's not just a light flashes on, it's all of this stuff is going, and the puma is more likely to decide that it's not worth going after the livestock. And then just for the people online, the point just made was that if the pumas have not killed a goat, the deterrence is more likely to be effective, whereas if they've already gone after livestock, you need to go to more extreme measures, so it's better to implement the system earlier on to try and prevent pumas from going after livestock in the first place.
Okay, so the question was about any cables that we would use, and like mice really like that, so how would we solve that? So actually our system uses Wi-Fi. That's the whole file transfer protocol that Addis mentioned. So there actually is like minimal circuitry to that, and because it's all like done wirelessly and you can set up a Wi-Fi router to make that work, cables aren't as big an issue. Did that answer your question?
Is the Raspberry Pi ruggedized? Do they make one, or did you guys use a container and do that yourself?
So basically the question was, does the Raspberry Pi like have a container, or how is it used? So the answer to that is basically that we use like a Raspberry Pi 5, correct? And that is a pretty durable Raspberry Pi. Correct me if I'm wrong.
We also have a case.
Yeah, so there's also a case. Cool. Any other questions?
We have a few questions that came in online, and we can come back to in person as well. But first, someone wants to know: have you thought of patenting this once it's developed?
Anyone else want to answer that? Oh, shit. Okay, quickly, the idea of this is more to not like sell it as like a product, more just for example, anyone can go out and buy these security cameras or these, and basically everything that's used. And actually, the code that we use is all open source, so it's available to anyone for free. So already it's already out there, and we're not trying to make a profit off of this or anything.
Yeah, so our whole goal with this project is to sort of help people in a more cost-effective way, and it didn't really cost us much to make this either. This isn't some product that we spent like years researching and developing and need to make money back. So it's almost like volunteer research, I would almost describe it as, and we don't want to make it so expensive as to be inaccessible, and we really do want to make it accessible and like a feasible solution in that way.
Thank you. Next question. You mentioned the setup not being fast enough to ID pumas in time to play a deterrent before the lion had moved on. Have you come across any solutions you'd like to try to make it faster?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
You mentioned the setup not being fast enough to ID the pumas in time to play a deterrent before the lion had moved on. Have you come across any solutions you'd like to try to make it faster?
Yeah, so the question, or no, do I have to repeat it? No, all right. Yeah, so we've originally, there was a big time, it took a lot of time for it to happen, but we've shortened that down, and currently our solution is the Xception model that we're using for it has a lot of parameters, and there's a lot of stuff in it, so we're trying to cut that down, getting we're trying to only keep the important stuff to get it as small as possible so it can actually run as fast as possible. But we have it now down to a time that it actually can do it in time and work.
Yeah, we can do it in 9 seconds, and that's really all the time you need. So that slide was first kind of made when we were brainstorming what the possible issues could be. But it turns out that with the Raspberry Pi and the Xception model, it gets it pretty quickly. It takes about 4 seconds, I'd say, to ID the animal, 4 seconds to go from the camera to the Raspberry Pi. So that problem is basically solved already. Yeah, we're currently deploying it right now. So we've got it working. We just need it tested, basically. Yeah, we need a Puma.
Gotta start training cats at some point. Don't bait them. No, that's not a good solution. All right, one more from online, and we'll keep watching for hands in the room as well. Is anyone using similar methods to identify and classify certain animals in large photographic data sets? Thinking of motion-activated cameras on the wildlife bridges. Could a part of your system quickly tell how many bears versus cats versus others use the bridge?
Yeah, so like I mentioned a bit earlier, really the main system that we saw that was similar to ours was the system that was being used to try and deter elephants from getting on railroads and potentially being hit by trains. But surprisingly, in our research, we didn't actually stumble on many solutions similar to ours, but it could definitely be cross-applied in many situations, such as wildlife counting. And it's possible that it also is used more in wildlife counting, but it's not very common in this sort of quick time response that we are basically working to implement.
So there was a comment about there's not much intersect between machine learning and wildlife. Any other questions? Oh yeah, let's go here in the room.
Did they use it to class? So that turned out to be a different aspect of this thing.
So just to wrap everybody in at home, there's some discussion about connecting the group with a former lab employee who is now at National Geographic working on AI and machine learning and might have some wildlife applications. Can we take one more from the room? Yeah.
Congratulations on being.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, the question was misuse. Like, how could this be misused? So I guess our philosophy with that is kind of any type of new technology can be misused if it's put into the wrong hands. We're just trying to use machine learning to do good. Also, it's actually another thing I would like to add is it's being used actually by different rangers to like prevent like poachers. Like if they can have the machine learning detect if poachers in the area and call rangers to fix it. So it's useful in anti-poaching, but I can't like think of how it would be super useful in poaching.
Patenting it will control how it's used, so then the bad guys who might use this to just hunt mountain lions, they would be stopped because.
It wouldn't be as accessible then to like different try.
I would just say I'm trying to save the puma and then kill it, right? So it's gonna, the pattern is gonna stop that. Or for other uses. Yeah. Train it to recognize other.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know how much you know about patent law. I'm definitely not an expert, but how wide exactly would we be able to get the patent? Because I think a patent covering using machine learning to recognize something and then trigger something is rather broad, and I don't know if that would even be granted. It might be more specifically for wildlife deterrence or something. But again, I'm not really an expert on patent law, so that's just my conjecture.
All right, we'll take one more from the room in the front. Yes.
So you guys talked a lot about like long-term options for how you could expand what you've done into more things, but do you have any specific ideas of what you want to do after implementing it at the stables? Testing it?
Yeah, good question. The question was like, what are our plans after we implement the stables? Like, what are some things that we want to do? So actually, first we just need to get a Puma to actually come to the stable so we can make sure it works. But when we get that to happen, we've given this talk in front of the Mountain Lion Foundation already, and we've actually gotten like researchers who are interested in deploying it. We had I think a college graduate who was trying to deploy it in California. So that's definitely an avenue we could go down. Also, I think it was Zoe that mentioned, or maybe, no, it was Phoebe. Phoebe mentioned it. That one of the other projects that won NeurIPS is trying to use machine learning to harvest rainwater in wells in Tanzania. And so what they saw when they saw our project is they realized that the Maasai tribes in Kenya and Tanzania, they have issues where African lions kill their livestock. So they thought this would be a really successful solution maybe for them to try. So those are some things we could try.
And I'll just say, our next step probably won't be this day.
Okay, so the comment was basically that actually a first step is going to be actually trying to work with these college graduates because what they're using are single homes with much less livestock and just a much smaller area. So that's a much easier solution than at the stables where there's so many access points, such a large area. So the next progression to this would be with the working at these like single homes, and then after that we can try to implement this at the stables. Any more questions? Or?
Kind of a similar question that just came in. Are there cameras and deterrents deployed at the stables now?
Actually, there are not. There are no deterrents at the stable currently. People have I think they have tried using just a motion sensor.
I can answer that. There are individuals that do.
Yeah, so they have tried using talk radio and lights, but that's just the motion sensor going off all the time, and that's so far been ineffective. So we're hoping this is a new, using AI would hopefully make this more effective. Anyone? Yeah.
Is there one more question?
I have the same
Yeah.
question. So.
Oh, okay.
Oh, same one. We answered it. Great. All right. We'll keep an eye out. If anybody thinks of anything, throw up your hands, throw it in the chat. But if those are all the questions, I want to thank everyone again for sharing, I want to thank our presenters for sharing their project with us tonight. Congratulations on all the successes. And thank you to everyone who joined us for the talk. And please remember to look out for that survey coming to your email. Check out the PEEC website for some great programming coming up for the rest of the winter. In case we actually get some snow, our snowshoe rental program is up and running. If you'd rather think ahead to the summer, our summer camps are open for registration. So thanks everyone again, and have a good night.